So next, we're going to talk about what people do on their digital devices. We'll see some very interesting differences between non-Asians and Asians. So this is the number of hours people spend, on each different activity on digital devices, such as smartphone, tablet, computer. Again, the blue line is non-Asian, and the red line is Asian. So let's look at the blue line first. The top 3 activities people do on digital devices for non-Asians are social media, listening to music, and messaging. But for Asians, it's very different. The number 1 activity is email. Asians spend close to 7 hours on email on a weekly basis. And the number 2 activity is watching videos. And number 3 is social media. So this slide is about different activities, the time people spend on these activities on their smartphone. We can see that the blue line, the non-Asian, their behaviors, trend pretty closely with the previous line because they spend, a lot of time, majority of the time on smartphone. And the line for, the red line for Asian, they do spend a lot of time on smartphone, but compared to non-Asians, they spend less time on social media, listening to music, and playing games on smartphone. And on the next line, we will see why. They actually spend a lot more time on computer. And this is probably related to the fact that, Asian Americans, they have, higher ownership of computer. So we see that they spend, 3.5 hours on email on a weekly basis on the computer. They also spend a lot more time, on virtually all other activities on the computer compared to non-Asians. Earlier, it was mentioned that, e-sport or gaming, would be an opportunity among Asian Americans. And when I rehearsed this presentation with my friend Sandra Wynn, who is also on the board, and when she looked at the data, she said playing games. She noticed that Asian Americans spend less time on playing games, and she's like, that would not be the case. I spend a lot of time playing games. All the major games, the top players are Asian American, and she is US born. So I just want to point out 2 things. So for gaming, the number for US born Asians is more than twice of the number for foreign born Asians. And also, as we see here, the time on playing games for non-Asian, a lot of them is actually, on smartphone. So that's probably, casual gaming. Now, this slide shows the time spent on different activities on digital devices by Asian nationality. We can see that for Filipinos, they spend a lot of time on social media. That's close to 10 hours a week on social media. Because Filipinos, they work around the world. 10% of Filipinos work outside of the Philippines. So they love to, stay in touch with their family, not only in the US, but also in the Philippines and also, other parts of the world. So they spend a lot of time on social media. And they also spend a lot of time on testing. That's more than 7 hours a week on testing. And apparently testing is very popular in the Philippines. It's a very affordable way of communication. And when you, stay in touch with your family and friends in the Philippines, then, you will use the way of, that they are used to, for communication. Then we notice for Asian and Chinese, they over-index on reading on digital device. For Chinese, I can tell you that it's not necessarily about reading on Kindle. A whole generation of Chinese grew up reading web novels, and a lot of popular Chinese dramas are based on these web novels.